Her hands trembled as she held the handwritten invitation, standing in the doorway of his private study. The most dangerous man in New York sat behind his mahogany desk, his gray eyes fixed on the small card she'd just placed before him. "Christmas dinner?" His voice was ice. "At your apartment?" Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd worked as his maid for 3 months, and this was the first time she'd dared to speak to him beyond, "Yes, sir," and "Right away, sir." But last night she'd heard something that shattered her. The sound of the most powerful Mafia boss in America sitting alone in the dark on Christmas Eve, a half-empty bottle of whiskey his only companion. What had she just done? If you want to discover how this unlikely invitation changed both their lives forever, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Every view helps bring more stories like this one. Now, let's see how it all began. Elena Rivera had learned to be invisible. It was a survival skill she'd perfected over her 24 years, first as a foster child bouncing between homes, then as a scholarship student at Columbia University, and now as a live-in maid at the Moretti mansion in the Upper East Side. Invisible meant safe. Invisible meant employed. Invisible meant she could send money back to her younger foster sister, Maria, who was still stuck in the system. The Moretti mansion was a fortress disguised as luxury. 12 bedrooms, surveillance cameras in every corner, armed guards who nodded but never smiled, and staff who communicated in whispers and downcast eyes. Elena had been hired through an agency that asked no questions, perfect for someone with her background. No family to speak of. No ties. No one who would miss her if she disappeared. She'd heard the rumors, of course. Dante Moretti. The Don. The most feared man in New York's underworld. At 32, he'd consolidated 5 families under his control through a combination of brutal efficiency and strategic genius. People said he was heartless. That he'd killed his first man at 16. That his gray eyes were the last thing his enemies saw before they disappeared into the Hudson River. But in 3 months of working for him, Elena had noticed something no one else seemed to see. He was desperately, achingly alone. It was the little things. The way his bodyguards and advisors never stayed longer than necessary. The massive dining table where he ate every meal in solitude, his phone face down beside his plate. The library filled with first editions that looked well-read but never discussed. The grand piano in the music room that was perfectly tuned but never played. And then there was last night. Elena had been working late, polishing the silver in the butler's pantry, when she heard it, a sound so unexpected it froze her in place. Music. Slow, melancholic piano notes drifting from the music room. She'd crept closer, knowing she shouldn't, unable to stop herself. Through the cracked door, she'd seen him. Dante Moretti, still in his suit but with his jacket discarded, his tie loosened, sitting at the Steinway with a tumbler of amber liquid beside him. His fingers moved across the keys with surprising gentleness, playing a piece she recognized from her 1 semester of music appreciation, Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. But it was what happened after the music stopped that broke her heart. He just sat there, staring at the decorated Christmas tree in the corner of the room, a massive 12-footer that Elena and the other staff had decorated per the housekeeper's instructions. The lights twinkled in the darkness, reflecting off the crystal ornaments. And Dante Moretti, the man who made governors and police chiefs bow, had looked at that tree with an expression of such profound loneliness that Elena had to press her hand against her mouth to keep from gasping. "Set aside Annie," he'd whispered to the empty room. 16 years. Then he'd poured another 3 fingers of whiskey and walked out, leaving the piano bench pushed back and the tree lights still glowing. Elena hadn't slept that night. She'd lain in her small room on the 3rd floor, the staff quarters, thinking about that moment. About the man everyone feared sitting alone in the dark. About the music that revealed a soul everyone assumed he didn't have. About 16 years of something that haunted him every Christmas. By dawn, she'd made a decision that was either brave or stupid. Probably stupid. She'd spent her morning off in her tiny studio apartment in Queens, the one she kept even though she lived at the mansion, because she needed one place that was truly hers. She'd bought ingredients she couldn't afford with money she should have saved. She'd handwritten an invitation on a card she'd found at a bodega, her penmanship careful and hopeful. Mr. Moretti, you're invited to Christmas dinner. 7 p.m., December 25th. Nothing fancy. Just food and company. Elena. She'd added her address at the bottom, then immediately regretted it. What was she thinking? He probably had a dozen holiday invitations from people who actually mattered. Politicians. Business associates. Women who looked like supermodels and had last names that opened doors. But she'd seen his face last night. And something in her chest, that stupid, hopeful part that foster care had never quite killed, insisted that everyone deserved to not be alone on Christmas. Even Mafia bosses. Especially Mafia bosses who played Chochen in the dark. Now here she was, standing in his private study at 6 p.m. on Christmas Eve, the invitation extended like a white flag or a death wish. Dante Moretti studied the card without touching it. His three-piece Tom Ford suit was impeccable, his dark hair perfectly styled, his presence filling the room like a physical force. The tattoo on his neck, a serpent coiled around a cross, was just visible above his collar. His gray eyes, the color of winter storms, moved from the card to her face. "You're inviting me," he said slowly, each word measured, "to your apartment. For Christmas dinner." "Yes, sir." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Do you know who I am, Miss Rivera?" "Yes, sir." "And yet you thought this was appropriate?" His tone was unreadable, not quite angry, not quite amused. Something else entirely. Elena's throat was dry, but she'd come this far. "I thought," she swallowed hard, "I thought everyone deserves company on Christmas. Even you. Especially you." The silence that followed was so complete she could hear her own heartbeat. Dante Moretti's expression hadn't changed, but something flickered behind those storm-gray eyes. Something dangerous and vulnerable and completely unexpected. His hand moved toward the invitation, fingers hovering over the card without quite touching it, as if it might burn him. 7 p.m.? He asked quietly. "Yes, sir." "Nothing fancy?" "Just food and company." "Like I said." Another endless silence. Then Dante Moretti did something that stopped her heart. He picked up the invitation, folded it carefully, and tucked it into the inside pocket of his jacket, right over his heart. "Miss Rivera," he said, his voice dropping to something almost soft, almost dangerous, "do you have any idea what you've just done?" They ate dinner with the kind of careful intimacy that comes from two people slowly removing their armor. Dante told her about his mother, Sophia Moretti, who'd loved opera and homemade pasta, and her only son with a fierceness that had shaped everything he became. Who'd taught him piano because she believed every man needed beauty in his life to balance the darkness. Who'd died protecting him, throwing herself between him and the bomb she'd realized was in the Christmas package 1 second too late. Elena told him about the foster system, 15 different homes before she aged out. About Maria, the only foster sibling she'd kept in touch with, who was smart and scared and counting the days until she could leave. About Columbia University and the scholarship she'd lost when her foster mother at the time had kicked her out 2 months before graduation. About learning to be invisible because visible meant people noticed you were alone, were vulnerable, were easy to hurt. "You were so close to graduating," Dante said, his fork pausing halfway to his mouth. "What were you studying?" "Art history." Elena laughed without humor. "Useless, right? Can't eat paintings. Can't pay rent with them." "It's not useless." His voice was firm. "Beauty matters. My mother taught me that. It's what keeps us human when everything else tries to make us monsters." The look he gave her then made her chest tight. Like she was a painting he was seeing for the first time. Like she mattered. They moved to her small couch after dinner, the only place to sit besides the bed, which felt too intimate, too presumptuous. Dante had removed his coat and rolled up his shirt sleeves, revealing forearms marked with more tattoos. A rosary wrapped around his right wrist. A date on his left forearm that she realized was his parents' death date. "You mark yourself with your grief," she observed softly. "So I never forget what happens when you let your guard down." He was close enough that she could feel the heat of him, smell his cologne, something expensive and dark. "So I remember what I'm fighting to prevent." "Is that all you are?" Elena asked. "Just grief and survival? What else is there?" She took his hand, traced the tattoos with her fingertips. His breath hitched at the contact. "There's music. There's beauty. There's—" she looked up at him through her lashes. "There's this. Connection. Being known." Elena. Her name on his lips was a warning and a prayer. "You're not your worst moment," she continued, emboldened by the way he was looking at her. "You're not just the things you've had to do. You're also the man who kept a handwritten invitation in his pocket, who helped serve dinner, who's sitting here with me instead of in that empty mansion." Dante's control was visibly fraying. His hand came up to cup her jaw, his thumb tracing her lower lip with devastating gentleness. "You see me," he said, his voice rough. "You really see me. Do you have any idea how dangerous that is? For both of us. I'm not afraid of you. You should be." But even as he said it, he was leaning closer, his forehead touching hers. "I'm not. I can't be what you deserve, Elena. I can't be normal. Safe. Simple. I don't want normal." Her hands came up to rest against his chest, feeling his heart hammering beneath expensive fabric. "I want real. I want honest. I want—" The confession died as his phone rang, shattering the moment. Dante cursed in Italian, low and vicious, but pulled away to check it. His expression hardened as he read the screen. "I have to take this." He stood, walked to the window, answered in a voice that was pure ice. "Speak." Elena couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but she watched Dante's body language shift, shoulders squaring, jaw tightening, that lethal energy returning. He was the Don again, the man who made people disappear. "Handle it," he said flatly. "I don't care how. Just handle it before I get back." A pause. "No. I'm exactly where I need to be." His eyes found Elena's across the small space. "Yes. She's under my protection now. Make sure everyone knows it." He ended the call, but the tension remained. Elena stood slowly. "Is everything? There's something you need to know." Dante's voice was careful, controlled. "About what happens now, after tonight." Her stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "I told you, if I stayed, I wouldn't be able to let go." He crossed back to her, his presence overwhelming in the small space. "I meant it. You're under my protection now. That means my enemies will know about you. That means you can't be alone. Can't be vulnerable. Can't—" He stopped, frustration flashing across his face. "Cristo, I'm doing exactly what I swore I wouldn't. I'm putting you in danger just by being here. Dante, you need to understand what you're signing up for." His hands gripped her shoulders, not hard but firm. "If you want me to leave and never come back, I will. I'll make sure you're protected from a distance. But if I stay, if we do this, your life changes completely. You'd have to leave this apartment. Live somewhere I can keep you safe. You'd have bodyguards. Restrictions. My world is," he struggled for words, "it's not free. It's not safe. It's constant vigilance and danger and—" "What about Maria?" Elena cut through his spiral. "My foster sister. She's still in the system. Would you help her?" Dante blinked, clearly not expecting the question. Your sister. If my life is changing anyway. If we're doing this. Her voice trembled but held firm. She's 16. Smart. Scared. She deserves better than what the system will give her. Can you help get her out? Help her be safe. Something shifted in Dante's expression. Surprise, then respect, then something tender that made her breath catch. You're negotiating, he said slowly. In the middle of me trying to protect you, you're using it to help someone else. Is that wrong? No. He pulled her closer, his hands sliding from her shoulders to frame her face. Christo, no. It's your... He kissed her forehead, gentle and reverent. I'll have her out of that home by tomorrow. Set up in a safe house with round-the-clock security, education, everything she needs. I'll move her to whatever private school she wants. Columbia, if that's her dream. Everything. Tears burned Elena's eyes. You'd do that? For you? His thumb wiped away a tear that escaped. I'd do anything. I'd burn this city to ashes. His voice cracked. You make me want to be better. You make me want to be the man my mother raised instead of the monster her death created. So yes. For you, I'd do that and more. Elena's response was to rise on her toes and press her lips to his, a kiss that was soft and desperate and full of promises neither of them could articulate. Dante groaned against her mouth, his control finally shattering, and kissed her back with 16 years of loneliness and hunger and hope he'd forgotten how to feel. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against hers. Stay with me tonight, he whispered. Not like that. Just stay. Let me hold you. Let me remember what it feels like to not be alone on Christmas. Yes, Elena breathed. Yes. They moved to her bed, fully clothed, and Dante Moretti, the most feared man in New York, pulled her against his chest and held her like she was the most precious thing in his world. His heart beat steady against her back. His breath was warm on her neck. And for the first time in 16 years, he fell asleep feeling safe. Neither of them noticed the black SUV that had been parked across the street for the past hour, or the camera lens pointed at Elena's window, or the man in the driver's seat making a call that would change everything. Boss, the voice said on the other end, Moretti's got a weakness. A girl. Want me to move on her? Elena woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of low voices speaking Italian. For a moment, confusion clouded her mind. She was in her apartment, in her bed, but the warmth beside her and the expensive cologne on her sheets reminded her. Last night. Dante. The invitation that had changed everything. But the voices made her freeze. Multiple men. In her apartment. She sat up slowly, finding Dante already awake, sitting on the edge of the bed with his phone pressed to his ear. He was still in yesterday's clothes, but now there were 3 men in dark suits standing in her tiny studio, their presence making the space feel suffocating. Dante ended his call the moment he sensed her movement. Elena. His voice was gentle despite the hardness in his eyes. We have a situation. Her stomach dropped. What kind of situation? The kind where we need to leave. Now. He stood, moved to her side of the bed, crouched so they were eye level. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? The fear in her chest warred with something else, the memory of his arms around her last night. His promises. His vulnerability. What's happening? Someone knows you're important to me. His jaw was tight. Someone took photos of us last night. They're already circulating in circles that shouldn't have them. Which means I'm a target. Elena's voice was surprisingly steady. You're under my protection. Dante corrected firmly. Which means right now we move you somewhere secure. These are my most trusted men, Marco, Luca, and Tony. They'll help us get you out safely. What about Maria? Elena grabbed his wrist. You promised. Already done. His hand covered hers. She was extracted from her group home at 6 a.m. She's in a secure location in Connecticut with female guards who've been briefed to treat her like a princess. She thinks she won a scholarship program. She's safe, Elena. I promised you, and I delivered. The relief was dizzying, but reality crashed back quickly. My job. The mansion. I can't just. You're not going back there. Dante's tone left no room for argument. That's the first place they'll look. You're done being a maid, tesoro. From now on he hesitated, then said firmly, you're mine to protect, mine to keep safe. Is that understood? The possessiveness should have scared her. Instead, it sent heat through her veins. For how long? Something fierce flashed in his eyes. Permanently, if I have my way. One of the men, Marco, she thought, cleared his throat. Boss, we need to move. Now. The next hour was a blur. Elena was given 10 minutes to pack essentials while the men swept her apartment for bugs and tracking devices. Dante made call after call, his voice alternating between icy commands and careful reassurances when he looked at her. They left through the back stairwell, surrounded by guards, and entered a black SUV with tinted windows. But it was the destination that stopped her heart. They didn't go to another safe house. They went to the Moretti mansion, but not to the staff quarters. Dante led her through halls she'd only cleaned, up a grand staircase she'd only polished, to a wing of the house she'd never entered. His private wing. This is my suite, Dante said, opening double doors to reveal a space that was both luxurious and surprisingly personal. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park. A California king bed dominated one wall. But it was the details that caught her. The bookshelves full of worn paperbacks, the Steinway in the corner, the photographs on the mantel of a woman who must have been his mother. You're staying here. It wasn't a question. With me. Where I can see you. Where I know you're safe. Elena turned to face him, her heart pounding. Dante, this is, people will talk. Your staff. Your men. They'll think. Let them think. He crossed to her, his hands gentle on her shoulders. Let them know. You're not my maid anymore, Elena. He struggled with the word, then settled on. You're mine. Under my protection. In my life. In my home. In my bed if you'll have me, though I'll sleep on the couch if you're not ready. I don't understand what's happening. Her voice broke. Yesterday I was invisible. Today I'm what? Your kept woman? You're the woman who saw me. Dante's voice was fierce. The woman who invited me to dinner when no one else dared speak to me like I was human. The woman who negotiated for her foster sister before thinking of herself. Christo, Elena, you're the first thing that's mattered to me in 16 years. So no, you're not my kept woman. The confession was interrupted by Marco bursting through the door, his expression grim. Boss, we have a problem. Dante's entire demeanor shifted. What kind of problem? The kind with a bomb signature we recognize. Marco's eyes flicked to Elena, then back to Dante. Salvatore family. They've put $1 million bounty on her head. Open contract. They want to send you a message about getting soft. The silence that followed was terrifying. Elena watched Dante's face transform, the gentleman from last night disappearing behind the mask of the dawn. When he spoke, his voice was death itself. Get every soldier we have on the street. I want Salvatore locations identified within the hour. I want— He stopped, visibly reining himself in, turned to Elena with eyes that were storms contained by sheer will. Go into the bedroom. Lock the door. Don't come out until I come for you. Dante. Please. The word was ragged. Please, Tesoro. Let me handle this. Let me keep you safe. I can't. If something happened to you because of me, I'd— His hands were shaking, she realized. The most dangerous man in New York was shaking. Please. Elena wanted to argue, but the fear in his eyes stopped her. This wasn't about control. This was about terror, about a 16-year-old boy who'd watched his mother die because someone had targeted his family. About a man who'd finally let someone in only to immediately put them in danger. She touched his face, gentle and sure. "Keep us safe," she said softly. "You and me. Don't do anything stupid. Don't become the monster they want you to be. Come back to me, Dante. Promise you'll come back to me." His forehead pressed to hers, and for a moment he was just a man. Just Dante. "I promise," he whispered. "I swear on my mother's memory, I'll come back to you." Then he was gone, and Elena was alone in a bedroom that smelled like him, listening to the sounds of a war being mobilized downstairs, praying that the man she was falling for wouldn't lose himself in the violence he'd have to commit to keep her safe. Outside the window, Christmas lights still twinkled in Central Park, oblivious to the storm about to break. Elena spent 3 hours in Dante's bedroom, listening to the sounds of organized chaos below. Phones ringing. Men shouting in Italian. Cars arriving and departing. The entire operation of the Moretti family mobilizing around the threat to her life. She'd tried the door once, locked from the outside. For her protection, she understood, but it still felt like a cage. She'd explored the room instead, learning about Dante through his possessions. The dog-eared copy of the Count of Monte Cristo on his nightstand. The framed photo of his parents on their wedding day. The music sheets for Chopin's Nocturne on the piano, annotated in his mother's handwriting, notes about tempo and feeling that he'd preserved like scripture. This was the man behind the monster. The boy who'd lost everything and built walls so high no one could climb them. Until a stupid, hopeful maid had extended a Christmas invitation. At hour 4, her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. But something made her pick up. Elena Rivera? A man's voice. Cold. Amused. "Who is this?" "Someone who wants to give you a choice." She could hear the smile in his voice. "You see, Dante Moretti is about to do something very stupid. He's about to start a war that will cost hundreds of lives. All because of you. All because he's gotten soft over a pretty face." Elena's blood ran cold. "What do you want?" "I want to offer you a deal. You walk away. Leave New York. Disappear. I'll even help. Money, new identity, your sister set up somewhere nice. All you have to do is leave before he gets back. Show him that caring about someone only leads to loss. Break him now, before he breaks the city. And if I don't? Then people die. His men. My men. Innocent people caught in the crossfire. All because Dante Moretti forgot the first rule of our world. Attachments are weaknesses. Love is death." The voice hardened. "He killed my brother last year in a territory dispute. I want him to suffer. I want him to understand loss. You can either leave now and spare everyone, or you can stay and watch him become the monster he's been fighting all these years. Your choice, sweetheart." The line went dead. Elena stood frozen, phone clutched in her shaking hand, mind racing. This was a test. A manipulation. Of course it was. But the truth in it was what terrified her. Dante was about to start a war. People would die. All because she'd been seen with him. All because she'd made him vulnerable. Maybe loving him was the cruelest thing she could do. The door unlocked. Dante entered, and the sight of him stopped her breath. Blood on his knuckles. Exhaustion in his eyes. But alive. Oh. He'd come back to her like he promised. "It's done," he said quietly. "The contract's been pulled. Salvatore is handled. You're safe." "What did you do?" Elena's voice was small. "What I had to." He moved toward her, but stopped when he saw her expression. "Elena? What's wrong? How many people died tonight because of me?" Dante's face shuddered. "That's not. How many?" She needed to know. Needed to understand the cost of being loved by him. 3. His voice was flat. 3 of Salvatore's men who were moving on your location. They're gone. They can't hurt you. And tomorrow? Next week? Next year? Tears burned her eyes. How many more people will die because you care about me? Because I made you vulnerable? Because her voice broke, because I invited you to Christmas dinner? Understanding dawned on Dante's face, followed by something that looked like panic. No, no, don't do this. Don't let them make you think. Someone called me. The words tumbled out. Offered me a deal. Said I could leave and end this before it gets worse. Before more people die. Before you become. Before I become what? Dante's voice was dangerous now. Say it, Elena. Before I become the monster. Before you lose yourself. She was crying now, couldn't stop. I saw your face tonight, Dante. I heard the orders you were giving. You were ready to burn the city down. For me. Because of me. Is that love or is that? It's both. He crossed the space between them, gripped her shoulders. It's love and it's madness, and it's the most terrifying thing I've ever felt. Because, yes, I would burn the city down for you. I would become the monster. I would do things that would make you hate me if it meant keeping you safe. That's what it means to matter to me, Elena. That's the price of being seen. That's not fair, she whispered. No, he agreed. It's not. Nothing about my world is fair. But here's what's also true. I'm better with you than without you. I'm more human with you than I've been in 16 years. You make me want to be the man who deserves you instead of the man who just takes what he wants. So yes, I'll fight for you. I'll kill for you if I have to. But I'll also try every day to be worthy of you. To be more than the violence. To be, his voice cracked, to be the man you saw playing piano in the dark. Elena's hands came up to frame his face, feeling the tension in his jaw, the desperation in his eyes. I'm scared, she admitted. Scared of what loving you means. Scared of what it costs. Scared that I'm not strong enough for this world. Then let me be strong enough for both of us. Dante's forehead touched hers. Let me protect you. Let me keep you safe. Let me, Cristo, Elena, let me love you. Even if it's selfish. Even if it's dangerous. Let me have this one thing. The words she'd been holding back finally broke free. I'm falling in love with you, she whispered. And it terrifies me. Good. His lips brushed hers, gentle and reverent. Because I fell in love with you the moment you handed me that invitation. And I'm not letting go. Not today. Not ever. So you need to choose, Tesoro. Choose me. Choose this. Choose us despite the danger and the cost and the fear. Or walk away now before I'm so far gone I can't survive it. Elena thought about the phone call. About the choice she'd been offered. About walking away and playing it safe and being invisible again. Then she thought about Dante's arms around her last night. About the way he'd protected Maria without hesitation. About the boy who played Chopin and the man who was trying so hard not to be just a monster. I choose you, she said. I choose us. Whatever that means. Whatever it costs. I choose. His kiss swallowed the rest of her words, and it was desperate and gentle and full of promises that neither of them knew if they could keep. But they'd try. God help them, they'd try. When they broke apart, Dante pulled a small box from his pocket. "I was going to wait," he said roughly. "Going to do this right. Court you properly. But I'm not patient, and I'm not good at waiting, and I need you to know, I need everyone to know, that you're not just under my protection. You're mine. If you'll have me." He opened the box to reveal a ring that took her breath away, a single diamond surrounded by smaller stones, set in platinum. Simple. Elegant. Absolutely perfect. "Marry me," Dante said, and it was both a command and a plea. "Not because of the danger. Not because of convenience. Marry me because I've been alone for 16 years, and you're the first person who made me want to live instead of just survive. Marry me because you see me and I see you, and that's rarer than any diamond. Marry me because," his voice broke, "because I love you, Elena Rivera. And I want to spend every Christmas for the rest of my life making sure you never regret inviting me to dinner." Elena looked at the ring, then at his face, then at the future spreading before them. Dangerous and complicated and absolutely terrifying. And absolutely worth it. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." The smile that broke across Dante's face was transformative. The boy he'd been before tragedy, the man he could be with her, the hope he'd thought died 16 years ago. He slid the ring onto her finger, kissed her knuckles, then pulled her close and held her like she was the answer to every question he'd ever asked. Outside, snow began to fall on New York City. Inside, two people who'd been alone too long finally found home in each other's arms. It wasn't a perfect ending. It wasn't even close to safe. But it was real. It was honest. And it was theirs. 2 years later, Elena Moretti stood in the same Queens apartment, now owned by the foundation she'd established with Dante's support, a safe house for foster youth aging out of the system. Maria, now 18 and thriving at Columbia, was helping set up the Christmas decorations. "You really thought inviting him to dinner was a good idea?" Maria teased, adjusting the string lights. Elena smiled, touching the diamond on her finger, now accompanied by a platinum wedding band engraved with the date of that Christmas dinner. "It was the best stupid decision I ever made." Dante appeared in the doorway, their 6-month-old daughter Sophia in his arms. He'd softened in fatherhood, though the danger was still there, always would be. But he'd learned to balance the monster with the man. To protect without destroying. To love without losing himself. "Ready?" he asked, gray eyes warm. Elena took Sophia, breathed in her baby scent, and looked at the family she'd built. The man who'd been alone for 16 years. The sister she'd saved. The daughter named after a woman who'd taught her son that beauty could coexist with darkness. "Ready," she said. Sometimes, the scariest invitations lead to the most beautiful destinations. Sometimes, seeing someone, really seeing them, is enough to change everything. Sometimes, all it takes is Christmas dinner. This story has come to an end. If it touched your heart in any way, leave your like and share it with someone who also enjoys emotional stories. New stories are coming soon. Until next time.